What does it take to raise champion livestock? That is a great question to ask, and there are a handful of people across the United States that you may want to ask that question to. Hey everyone, it's Tim from Linessa Farms, Specialty and Heirloom Livestock. Thanks for joining us again today. We recently traveled to Central Texas, where we had the privilege to be able to visit with our good friend Aaron Jennings. Chances are, if you have been to any large showings of sheep, be it North American International or others, if you've seen the Southdown class and you've seen the finalists, chances are you've already seen a Jennings Southdown sheep. You may just have not known it. So today we are going to talk about the Southdown breed. We're going to visit with Aaron and take a look at some of his ewes that had recently had lambs. Many of these lambs that you see today in this video will in fact go on to be champions at various shows across the United States. And you're definitely going to want to stay tuned until the end of the video because we are going to show you the finished product. This is probably, at the time of this video, one of the top 6 heavyweight Southdown sheep in the United States. So very, very cool. We look forward to sharing this with all of you. So stay tuned to find out more. So primarily, you're still doing the Southdowns. That's kind of been your bread and butter, right?
Well, you're right. So we've been doing them as a family, myself and my wife, for 11 years now, I believe. This may be our 11th or 12th lamb crop. I'd have to look at the calendar. But Dad got his first Southdowns when my sister turned 1. There was a show ewe lamb, and my uncle gave it to my sister. And so we've been in the Southdown business she turned 40 this year, so don't tell anybody. Don't put that on the internet. But so 39 years, 39 for the family. And then Dad was the executive secretary of the Southdown Breed Association for around 33 years. Of those 39. So we've been kind of heavily involved in the Southdown breed for a pretty extended period of time. Easy, girls. So this is hay grazer. It's basically a genetically selected Southdown, really is what it is. And this is BMR, so it's a real high sugar type hay grazer. So we don't feed grain to these ewes during the last month of gestation because we don't want our lambs getting too big. And so we basically try to pump them with sugar. And this hay grazer is really sweet. Like if you went out there and you chewed on a piece, you would taste it. It's very sweet. And then we don't usually feed lick tubs because I honestly think that economically they're not a great investment, but we wanted to make sure we got enough sugar in those lambs. We want those lambs to come out high and ready to go, ready to hit those ewes. My experience, you feed a ewe too much fat or too much protein, those lambs can kind of come out too big and they'll come out a little sluggish if the ewes are on a high fat diet. So we don't typically feed any grain to these ewes in late gestation. We only feed grain if we can help from it during lactation periods, lactation phases.
Early pregnancy, are you giving them any grain? Or
early pregnancy and or breeding, we are on either kind of a sugar hay, but we'll also feed some protein, like an alfalfa type product. Some people don't like alfalfa because they think it can mess with cyclicity, with some of the estrogen side of things. We've never had that much problem with it, to be honest with you. I know clovers can. I do know some of the clovers, but the alfalfa, we've never had a tremendous issue with cyclicity.
How far out are these girls?
So this pen of ewes right here, so I'll kind of walk you through how we do some of it.
Sure.
We do utilize ultrasound and then also just, observational data in terms of breed dates and some colors when we change some colors on bucks every now and again with a harness. But these girls right here will lamb with anywhere in the next few hours to the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
And so we bring these ewes in and we stage them by lambing group, and we have that data with our ultrasound every 21 days, and then also sometimes with our chalk marks if we're chalking bucks at that time. And then on this side of the barn, we have ewes that are about 3 to 6 weeks away. Okay. And then that'll be the end of our lambing season. So these ewes are just now maybe even starting to show an udder, if any. There could be some about 8 weeks, but pretty much 3 to 6 weeks on all these. As we bring all the ewes in here, we lamb out of this barn and put them in jugs, and we'll go look at the jugs here in a little bit. And then we slowly mix and blend those ewes and lambs back together. And then we increase the population in every pen once we feel like there's, you know, a really good bond between those ewes and lambs. So we don't have any issues with, you know, lambs getting lost or kicked off. We actually don't even dock tails or do anything until they're about 2 weeks old, 2 or 3 weeks old. And so you'll see a spray paint on their side, and that spray can is their mom. So we know that lamb standing across from us is out of 9159, although the spray paint's wearing off. And then we come in and we have an individual ID associated with all those lambs. So they get an ear tag, they get 2 vaccines, and we band their tails at around 2 to 3 weeks of age. Here we vaccinate for CDNT and sore mouth.
Okay.
Just because we're in concentrated enough environment that if we had a sore mouth break,
It's going everywhere.
it's going everywhere.
Sure.
And we have it in our soil. We've had it, my grandpa had it in his soil.
Right.
You know, and that's where we're at. So we know we've got it on our premise.
Gotcha. Plus, that you get it knocked out, so when they go to show, you don't have to worry about them picking up sore mouth a week before the fair.
You know,
and
and depending on what you're showing here, you do or don't have to have a health paper. If it's a terminal show, you don't. But still, nobody wants to mess with it.
Absolutely.
You know, and since it is a viral, contagious viral side of things, you're not going to get a health paper with it present. So, you know, we do go ahead and vaccinate for those 2 things.
Tell me about the reasoning behind waiting on docking. Is it just with the large number you have, it just works out better that way? I know different schools of thought. Some people want to dock immediately. Some people want to wait.
So I think the biggest reason for us is so we can do a certain number of lambs at once,
Right.
and just kind of move them through in our phases and waves. I worked in the commercial swine industry for a while, and being able to, you know, do things in chunks and
Right.
then transition them in and out of pens,
Right.
I think is beneficial. And so we're going to wait until we get enough lambs in that pen to be able to go through and vaccinate them and do everything simultaneously. There is some data on when you should vaccinate. I don't know, some people say vaccinating in a jug at a day old, you don't get the right type of vaccine uptake, so waiting a little bit, and I think some of that kind of goes into it probably. I also like to band their tails when they're a little bit older so I can make sure and get it in the right place.
It does make it easier to band them when they're a little older?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
For us, for where we want that band at on that tail head.
Gotcha.
In that specific location. These are a little bit older. You know, we go in after those bands have been on them for about 10 days, 7 to 10 days, and we cut all those tails off. And then we give them a shot of penicillin, just a broad spectrum antibiotic to prevent any potential infection.
How many Southdown ewes are you guys running?
We are running about 185 mature ewes.
Okay.
That doesn't count our yearlings because we don't breed our yearlings, so we do some, but rarely. We try to keep that number right around 180 to 200.
Now, as far as your yearlings are concerned, completely different program?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we have a different program for that. Now, the one thing I'll say is we change our program annually to some degree based on feedstuff costs. I mean, that is our number one expense, whether we're running a sheep in the pasture with either rain or irrigation, or we're feeding them in the pens, in the barn. What we have to feed them with our number of animals is by far and away our major overhead expense.
Right.
So this year, with the price of grain, some of the prices of hay, spending extra money on alfalfa was easily the sounder investment.
Sure.
And then once they get past those first few days in the jugs, we get them incorporated with a little bit of grain, a high-fat type ration. Then we put the alfalfa back in to bump our protein levels on milk. And
Gotcha.
so then we're going to go back with alfalfa and go from there. I also don't like to feed alfalfa when they're in late gestation because of hard bags.
Tell me about that.
If you have too much protein in the ration right at the end of lactation, they'll have a bag. It'll feel like mastitis, but it's not mastitis, and they will not make milk.
Okay.
It's going to be a turgid bag that's got some hardness to it, and you're going to have some problems with milk production.
Okay.
Especially if those ewes aren't used to high protein rates.
Now, will that wreck them? Can they snap out of that for the next?
The next year they're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a continuing issue.
Okay.
But at one time that year they're done milking for the year.
Bottle
Yes,
babies.
then you got too
or
many.
You're grafting or.
And we graft a fair amount. If we got a ewe that's one-sided, we do denote all of our ewes that are one-sided with an ear tag. They've all got a red ear tag.
Okay.
And so that way we know when they're lambing, if she has twins, we're going to pull a lamb and put it onto another ewe that's lambing thereafter.
Let's talk about show lambs. At what point are you starting to separate lambs out, and as far as what's going to go for show and what's not?
Well, fortunately, we critique and cull on our Southdown ewes extremely hard. So 95% of our lambs in the Southdown business will go show.
Okay.
Now, so when we're selecting for what's, say, going to be our replacement rams or replacement ewes versus what ewe lambs we're going to sell, we're going to do that somewhere between 2 and 6 weeks of age. We castrate all of our rams at around 4 to 5 weeks old because we're selling wethers at 7 weeks of age. We sell all of our wethers basically the day or the week that we wean them.
Can we look at a lamb? I'd like to look at a lamb and kind
Certainly.
of talk about breed characteristics, what's appealing and what's needed for a good Southdown.
Sure.
Maybe just talk about some high points of them, maybe something that you like about them.
We got them cut off, they're gonna get noisy, but when we're looking at a pen of lambs here, there's a lot of things we take into consideration on what we're selecting for, what we're trying to get accomplished. We're gonna look at these lambs and these ewes for milking ability, breed character, and quality. And the reason we're doing that is because we've got to be able to sell these sheep at the appropriate time, and they have to meet the breed standards when we're talking about classification. When you look at a big single like this,
Yes.
there's a lot of value in that sheep in terms of that ewe's milking ability. Obviously, that sheep is extremely heavy muscled.
Yes.
Okay? So, I mean, a sheep like that is definitely a sheep we would be interested in for either a replacement ram or a high-end valuable wether, and he will be a high-end valuable wether. We like sheep like this. That's just a big, stout, heavy bone, heavyweight, muscular sheep that you can tell that ewe's done her job milking.
Right.
And so there's a lot of value in that to be able to sell those lambs more quickly. Every lamb that we graft gets a mark on it. On its hip, it's got a red dot. So like that darker fleece lamb in the back, it's got a red dot on its back. I'm not gonna discount that lamb or that ewe for milk, because a lot of times if those ewes have a single, their body is kind of programmed to make that much milk. So when we artificially put a twin on them, you'll see that a lot of times where that twin doesn't have the same milk capability as if she had twins naturally.
Right.
So we wouldn't discount her for milk in our selection criteria, if that makes sense. That's a good sheep. Big bone, good neck set, a good breed character to him. He's really woolly headed. He's got good nose color. That's a quality sheep.
And how old would this guy be?
February the 10th, so he's a month old.
Nice.
Roughly, about a month. In terms of like specifics with selection and things like that, every judge has their preference. And what we try to do here is keep sheep that are good mothers, good milkers, skeletally sound, so their feet and legs are good on all four corners. And then we like muscle because we're in a terminal-based market, or that's our opinion. But some judges don't have as much preference on muscle. And so I think you could see some judges like a prettier look, a neater design. I'm not against that. That's just not our point of emphasis.
Dwarf gene I know that's a thing. Is that a thing specifically in Southdowns that you see? It's everywhere, right?
It originated in the Hampshire breed.
Okay.
And it has been incorporated into all the other registered purebred breeds. So
it has
that.
its benefits though, right? Can it?
Southdowns, if you put a dwarf gene in one, you better get real good at pulling lambs.
Really?
Real good. And part of that is just because of my experience in the blackface world and how it has created issues there. We do not have the dwarf gene in our Southdown flock, and I'm going to stay away from it because of the inheritance pattern in it. The show ring benefits of that gene are so, you trigger your eye so much that if you start selecting for sheep that either have that or will exhibit it, you're going to have real problems if you ever try to back out of that gene.
Gotcha.
If that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, will you do online auction? Do people come out?
So we used to have a big on-ranch sale. Well, that changed in COVID year. Dad's goal was that he wants every customer that buys our lambs to be satisfied. We can't guarantee their success at a stock show, but we want them to know what they're getting, and what they want to spend is what that animal is. So what we do is you have to come here and look at our sheep, and then we send you a private link to that sale. So it is online, but it's private. So you can only buy one if you've actually seen him.
Okay.
Or if they said, hey, Tim, you've been there.
Right.
What'd you think of this? You know, we let people kind of discuss it with others and say, oh, I'm looking for these 3 guys.
Right.
And so I'll send all 3 of them a link.
Gotcha.
Yes.
So for our customers and for our folks that are watching us online today, let's say we get people that are living, you know, we have people all over the U.S. If you had someone that was at a great distance and they wanted to purchase from you, how do you deal with that?
On the wethers, we will still allow that person to potentially bid if they call me and we have detailed conversation.
Right.
You know, now on the ewe lambs and rams, we do offer them free market.
Right.
Totally public on our online sales. But we sell a lot of ewe lambs or ewes, just every mature ewe I'm going to sell this year is already sold pretty much.
Okay.
We sell them in groups of 5s and 10s all the time.
So for people to wrap their head around prices, I don't think people realize there's a huge price window when it comes to all livestock.
Right.
But if you're looking at, let's say the primo best lamb that you have on your farm, what would you expect something like that to bring in a year?
So our wether sale, we're going to sell wethers. Our opening bid $750, and we're going to sell wethers from $750 to roughly $10,000. The average is going to be about $3,700 to $4,000, and we're going to have lambs that will hang a banner to major stock show that bring all the way from about, I think the cheapest one this year was $1,600, and he won a show, to $10,000, and he won a show. So I guess what I'm telling you, or what I try to tell people, is price point never hurts, but it is not the deciding factor on whether that lamb will win in 10 months down the road. So how you take care of him, how you feed him, the genetics that I've selected for, I mean, they change, you know, but I think that, you know, a good competitive show lamb in probably most states, if you're wanting to show a high-end wether, is going to be in that $1,000 to $2,500 range, just to get an idea to say that's what I'm going to be at. And then you can go up from there. You can spend as much as you want.
Sure.
It's kind of like buying a car.
Yeah.
You can do everything you want with a Toyota Camry, and you could win a show with a Toyota Camry, but you could also go buy a Ferrari. And the Ferrari might crash along the way. So there are positives and negatives to spending more and trying to fancy a ride.
And we have detailed conversations with customers about prices. Sometimes we tell people prices, or even in this video, there's probably a few people that were listening to us and probably just fell out of their chair. But you really have to, I feel like you really have to look at the big picture. It takes years and years and years of breeding, selection. There's a whole lot that goes into that lamb. You know, people look at it and they're like, oh, that's just a lamb. No, that is a legacy of years and years and years of work to get that product. And so when you throw prices at people, they have to realize, they have to kind of digest that there's a lot that goes into that price. It's not just, you know, you didn't just pick these up last year and drop out babies, you know.
That's the better way to make money, maybe. But no, I mean, and you're right. I mean, we have, this is the main focus of my career. So it's a large portion of my hours in the day and night when we're lambing out. I have probably owned 3,000 to 4,000 Southdown sheep in my lifetime. If you count the ewes I've bought, the lambs that I've had born, or ewe lambs, females. And so we have that down to 200, you know, 190 head. And to be that critical and that highly selective, we probably take some losses along the way. And so when you spread those losses all the way across, you look at your overheads, all that side of things, the break-even point is a lot higher probably than what people think. Now, commercially, and we'll go look at some commercial sheep here in a little bit, the price scheme's totally different.
Sure.
You know, you're going to talk basically anywhere from market value to if you have a niche market like a you know, farm to freezer type lamb, hanging lamb carcass, you're going to get more. Or if we're selling replacement ewe lamb, Katahdin ewe lambs, we're going to get a little premium for that because of the genetics and their growth rate. We do sell some $2, $3 a pound lambs out of here, unfortunately, because something happens, and that loses money real quick in this type of business operation.
I don't see any creep.
Not yet.
Okay, when will that happen?
A week ago.
Yeah, we have that happen a lot on our farm.
Actually, it will happen as soon as that bale of hay's gone. And so we were a little behind, and we cleaned the barns out after lambing, and we came in, and so we've got nice in your video, a nice pile of compost there that we'll be spreading here in about 30 days. But we put one bale of hay in here to get us a little bedding down, and then that's our bale on that side, and then as soon as it's gone, we'll put the hay back over here and set a creep feeder up immediately.
And you've got misters in here?
Fly unit. So that is a fly control system, and it's got a nozzle missing, so we've got part of it shut down right now. That's why we've got more flies than usual. But this thing will go off. It's like a hibiscus leaf, rose leaf petal type deal that it kills them, but mainly it chases them out. So it's all organic. We're not going to have any issues with, carcinogens, pesticide type deals in the barn.
That's a nice slam. Did we look at him already?
Up there on the front?
Yeah, looking at us?
Hadn't looked at him yet. This set of lambs is about ready to kind of just take off. They're going to take off. We get some creep feed out for them here in the next few days. That's on Monday's list, is getting some creep feed out.
It's important for people to work with their seller as well. Would you agree? You can really help a person out that's purchasing from you and tell them to get the most out of this lamb, this is kind of what you want to do. As far as you can help them get a program together as far as feeding, and you know how these lambs are going to grow. Sometimes people grab and go, and there's every farm's different, every animal's different. So I suppose you do a lot of that as well, if people want, right?
If they want, which a lot of people do. People want education. They want knowledge. What I'll say there, several things. One, genetics on a lot of people's flocks are unique and different. So how my sheep grow versus another seed stock Southdown guy's sheep grow and perform may be a little different. You may need to feed them a little different, and I tell people that.
Right.
Also, one thing I tell a lot of people is don't just change because you think it didn't work. And I know this is a little hard to swallow, but maybe the problem might have been you, not the feed. It may not have been the bag of Purina, the bag of Umbarger, the bag of Jacoby, whatever feed brand you're looking at, Honor, Show Chow, whatever. Maybe it was how you fed it.
Right.
Maybe it was the lamb you selected or were sold by someone. There's some of that. Maybe you should just become more and more familiar with what feed you're feeding and how you need to feed it. I mean, you look at Hunter Nutrition. There's several different kinds of lamb feeds and show feeds he offers. There's a reason there's different kinds. Not every feed works for every sheep, so you kind of have to learn some things and not just quit and give up with a feed bag because you didn't have the results your buddy did across the aisle at a show.
Absolutely.
And so, yes, we spend a lot of time doing that, but I have people feed every feed you can imagine.
Sure.
And it all can work, but you have to learn how to feed, whether it be Show Right or Jacoby or Umbarger or Honor. You better learn how to feed it to these sheep genetically, and then you're going to have some success. You got a treat today. We got a Texas Cooperative Extension agent and his daughter here. This is this girl's senior year. She was one of our first ever customers in the Southdown weather business. As a matter of fact, her first banner she won was Fort Worth with one of our lambs. And Steely is a senior sheep showman, and she is a member of the Texas Livestock Ambassadors program. She's traveled abroad and kind of been all over learning about agriculture and trying to basically help become an advocate.
So what do we got going on here, Aaron?
So this is a Southdown wether that Steely purchased from us when he was around 8 weeks of age. And so she has been caring for this wether all year. She's taking care of his wool, his boot wool, his feeding program, his exercise regimen, and then one of the things Steely is extremely good at is showmanship ability. And so she has certainly had to work with this lamb a lot on showmanship, I know, because this lamb was a little stiff-necked and heavy-jawed when she got him. And so she basically, this is the culmination of this lamb's career on a Thursday, Friday. He'll be going into the Austin stock show, that market lamb show, and he'll be showing Friday or Saturday, Josh? Saturday. Saturday's the show. So this lamb will be shown on Saturday, and all of our market lamb shows here in the state of Texas are terminal. And so, I say that, the majority of them are terminal. And so that will be the only time this sheep is shown at a major stock show is one day, one time, 1 year.
So walk me around this sheep, Aaron.
Okay.
Tell me what you like.
Well, again, like I told you, one of the things we do in our selection of how we're going to try to breed sheep is sheep that fit the breed standards, sheep that have good breed character, and then we do emphasize muscle as one of our major selection criterias just because these are a terminal product. And so I like a sheep that's square on all four corners, good on its feet and legs. And you can see here just in terms of rack shape, loin edge and loin dimension, and then you can look at the leg shape and leg mass of this sheep. This sheep certainly got plenty of product to him. And then also we look at these sheep in terms of leanness over the forerib, and then they're going to measure those carcasses as well at the 13th rib. And we want a sheep that's going to have an appropriate yield grade. Used to be about a yield grade 2. That's still kind of what we try to emphasize, but with some condition, we're probably looking at yield grade 3s nowadays. So a fat of roughly 2,500 to 3/10.
Where are we at weight-wise right now? 150?
I was going to say 45 to 55, somewhere in that range. So he's a heavyweight. There'll be 3 classes of Southdowns at Austin, and they'll break it probably like 125 to 130. Roughly will be a lightweight, and then you'll go up to about 140 will be middles, and then on up will be heavy. So he'll be a heavyweight, I would presume, at Austin.
That weight suits him well. He looks great.
You know, one of the things when we talk about show sheep that we want to make sure we want these sheep to be mature in their muscle, mature in their body wall, have some maturity to them, because we are theoretically, as part of the show component, we're delivering a carcass product to a consumer that day. That is one of the selection criterion, is delivering that product to that consumer. And then you build on that, obviously, with showmanship, presentation, all those side of it that you would judge or evaluate.
Nice. So for people that don't know, you spend a lot of time with this animal, don't you?
Yes, sir. I do.
So give me the kind of the rundown of what's a typical day look like for you as far as working with your animal to get them where they're at today.
You want them to stay on a schedule, so you wake up at 6 in the morning, feed at 6 in the morning. When it's still cool, if it's a hot day like this, we'll track or treadmill when it's still cool. Walk them to get some exercise, and it just works them with you.
Right.
Practice some showmanship up and down the driveway. My dad will be the judge, and I'll set them up. We work boots a lot. We wrap them, put them up. They stay in their pen with the wraps on, and then you'll get them out every day. Unwrap them, blow them out, re-wrap them up. Probably every weekend we wash them out with water, soap, and then we put 3 different products in them and blow it in, make sure they're dry, and re-wrap it up with some clean wraps.
Gotcha. As far as bracing is concerned, how much time do you spend doing that during a day? Do you brace every day for a while?
Yes, sir. As much as we can. You want them to have the stamina to show in the ring.
Right.
So we'll work them up and down the driveway for 15, 30 minutes, and you start slow and build them up to a good time, about the time you're going to be in that show ring, so you know they're going to sit still and have the stamina to show at the show.
Gotcha. A lot of our people are brand new to sheep. Can you give us kind of a walkthrough about where your hands are going and how you're getting them to brace for you?
So you want their feet to be square. You don't want them spread out too far, because then, that's going to take away from their muscle. It's going to make them look flatter muscled. And then you don't want them too narrow. You want their legs coming straight out from their body. Same with their front feet. You want those square, straight down. It's different for everyone where you place your hands. It's whatever's comfortable with you. The animal's head it's still part of the animal, so you don't want to cover it up too much or anything. You kind of want your hand down here. You want that head coming up straight out of the shoulder. And for me, I turn my toe out so they have more surface area right here on the inside of my thigh to drive. And you just train them to give you that little bit of brace back. It's different on each animal how much they need to make them feel hard.
Sure. And I suspect that the height of the animal, the height of the showman, that can play roles too, right?
Yes,
I know sometimes sometimes it can be difficult getting them to brace if they're a little too short or you're a little too tall. You get somebody like Aaron, I don't even know how he does it.
Yes.
He probably has to squat, I guess. I don't know. All right. Well, very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us today for this segment of our interview with Aaron Jennings. We have multiple other segments that will be coming out shortly. If you have not caught them yet, make sure you check the description below. We look forward to seeing all of you again very soon. Again, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns for us at Linessa Farms or for Aaron himself, make sure you check out the information listed in the description below. We will be more than happy to put you in touch with him. If you are not a member of Linessa Farms Tack Box on Facebook, that is another great place to get in touch with us and other like-minded individuals, and Aaron's on the Tack Box as well. I'm Tim from Linessa Farms Specialty and Heirloom Livestock. Thanks for joining us again today, and I look forward to seeing all of you again next time.